What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN. I'm Jude. That's Ethan. We're back at it here. It's still Wemby week. I don't know
Mhm.
what we want to call it. Ethan, I did my little video yesterday. I kind of talked about how I was buzzing. How are you feeling before we dive into the real nitty gritty of today's video?
It's been a fantastic week, dude. At work, we have weekly meetings where we talk about our work week and what we've been doing. And at the end of mine, I was like, and lastly, go Spurs, go. And the whole office they're Mavericks fans, so they were like, oh, whatever. But it's been my entire week. I've been telling anybody that would listen. I had my Spurs hat on at the grocery store. Somebody was like, what team is that? I'm like, it's the Spurs, baby. Wemby, we're back. It's just been an exhilarating feeling.
That's an interesting. I'm surprised. Even I know it's Dallas country, but you're still in Texas. They're like, what team is
Nobody
that?
likes the Spurs, bro.
What team
Well, they,
is
they don't
that?
hate they don't hate the
I'm
Spurs,
just
but they have
surprised they
no
didn't
idea.
know. Like,
Yeah, it's my like old school hat. I get
okay, okay.
the one I wear on here a lot of times.
I gotcha, I guess.
Is
But
kind of
still,
cool.
man. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
not a may not been an NBA fan. That makes sense. I forget
I
about
don't know.
that.
He
Not
was a
everybody's
salesperson. He's probably just trying to sell me on something.
not everybody watches the NBA. Forget that.
Yeah, that's
What
also
that
a thing.
that's a thought. Yeah, right.
I should have given him an SSPN card.
Oh
Come
yeah.
subscribe.
Hey man, I got your ticket to the league right here. This is a
Mm,
great way to get involved. If you
the
want to
best
know
way.
about you don't know this team, you want to know about them, here you go.
All we talk about.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, today's topic, though, as you've already seen probably from the thumbnail and the headline and all that stuff, the headline, the title, I'm still stuck in journalism, Ethan, uh, is that this has a huge impact on the Spurs coaching future. Not only
Mm,
just with Greg Popovich probably sticking around a little bit longer, and I'm not even necessarily suggesting multiple seasons, but at least this next season.
yeah,
And I was thinking about that, Ethan. Before this year, we were both pretty like that was the one thing we felt pretty adamant about was this was Pop's year at the beginning. Now, granted, pretty early in the season, we started to get some signs that that may not be the case. Specifically, that Minnesota game that was like one of the first 10 games of the year. And I was
mhm.
watching the Minnesota broadcast, and the Minnesota Valley Sports broadcasters are talking about how they were talking to Sean Elliott. And Sean Elliott was like, hey, Pop kind of seems rejuvenated. I don't know if, he might be around for a little bit longer. And, the more the season progressed, it seemed like there was a little bit, it didn't, it felt like the confidence in him definitely retiring after this year steadily decreased throughout the season. Not to say that, it went to a point where like we didn't think it was going to happen at all, but just like the percentage chance of it kind of felt like it went down throughout the year. And then of
Yeah.
course, with when Tuesday happens, that there was a big jump down, another big jump down in wherever that percentage was at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I went back and watched our preseason like
Predictions,
predictions. Yes,
right?
excuse me, think of the word. And we both agreed, like you're saying, that we thought this would be his last season. And I think we underestimated a couple things.
Hmm.
One, the Spurs don't act like the rest of the NBA, where it seems like
Right.
they treat their coaches like 3 or 4 year commitments, and then they're done, no matter what their records were. It's like it's 4 years and they're
Yeah.
out. And also a change of scenery for Pop because he was so used to one formula of things working. Now he has all these new players, so I'm sure it rejuvenated his love for coaching and the love for basketball.
He talked
And
about it all year. Also,
yeah,
just getting to like focus on straight development and not just like W's L's. Cause that even the year prior, like we made the play in. And
yep,
the first half of the season with Derek and DeJounte, that was still the main focus, was trying to win games.
exactly. And it also helped. We both thought that what's his name, who's now the coach for the Atlanta Hawks, Quinn Snyder, might have been the heir to the throne, if you will, but he just took the Hawks job, so he's kind of out.
Yeah.
And
And maybe if that opening doesn't happen, maybe that really was still the case. Who knows?
could have been, and I think we should really stop like trying to figure out Coach Pop because I've
No, you're
predicted
so right.
like we thought, okay, well once Timmy retires, he'll retire. That didn't happen. Then we're like, okay,
Right.
he's gonna wait for his gold medal, then he'll retire. That didn't happen. And now we were saying, okay, this is his last year, and he's back. And we have Victor Wembanyama, so there's really no reason for him to go anywhere.
Right.
As long as he still has, the love and the fire under his belly, which I think he does. He's still getting technicals. He's still yelling at guys. He's just old.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I don't mean to bring this up. I'm really not
Oh,
trying to be a
please.
Debbie Downer, but like Pop's wife passed away obviously a couple years ago.
I was
And
thinking that too.
and I, obviously that's a sour subject, and that's not a you never want to that's not a good thing at all in any case. But because of that,
Yeah.
that he has a little bit more free time on his hands, if you will.
There's not as much pulling him away from the game
Yeah,
anymore.
right. That's a
Um,
great way to put it.
so, I mean, I'm completely fine with keeping him around. Some people think he's outdated, and some people think he hasn't changed with the times. I completely disagree. I
I
think
agree.
he's
Yeah.
evolved through every 5 years in the NBA.
Bro, we were running 6-6. Like, we were running Keldon at the
Yeah,
4-man in the bubble. And I know it may have not been the most successful lineup, but he was definitely adapting. Like, because at
yeah,
that point, that was when the Rockets, were full blown kind of the Rockets and the Warriors and their small ball lineups were really like the head of the league's offenses.
yeah. And the only big criticism that people ever really have anymore is that he's like, oh, he never embraced a three ball, and I'm like, well, he doesn't embrace shot checking, but he embraces the
I would
three
say he
ball.
embraced it this year,
Yeah,
that's for sure. I
guys
know
can
it didn't lead
shoot.
to wins, but
Like
definitely embraced it.
he's not a fan of inefficient shot chucking like a Jordan Poole
Right,
did in the playoffs, where you shoot
right.
0 for 9 from a 3 point line. He's not a fan of that. He'll pull you out of the game. But we've always been like at the top of the league the last 5 years or so as far as like efficient 3 point shooting.
Yeah.
We're a very good efficient team, and we had
No, I
Davis
mean,
Bertans, Marco Bellinelli. Like we
shoot,
are always
Danny,
leaning on
like
Danny Green, and the playoffs,
breaking
Patty
the
Mills.
record. Like I
And
know he fell off the other half of the season, but it's like Pop was okay with him taking a bunch of threes, even in 14-13,
I
or
agree.
13-12, whatever it was.
And I am beyond excited to see how he utilizes Wemby. And we can get into this in another video, but like how he fits in the team. Is he gonna play 4 or the 5? Is he gonna be used in the pick and roll a lot, or will he be an
Hmm.
ISO guy, a post up guy? Like there's so many different avenues he can go. And luckily he had a lot of great experience with Tim Duncan, David Robinson, even Boris Diaw. So he'll be able to figure it out better than I think any other coach in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean to put, I mean, yeah, you're putting that type of talent
Yeah,
in a 5-time champion with the most wins in NBA history. And just so many people, eh, so many people regard him as the GOAT. And then
hmm,
even the people who don't regard him as the GOAT, like, understand why other people, like, they're not mad at it when people do. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
for sure.
Like, so it's just I don't really have too much to say, man. He's one of the best coaches ever, if not the best ever. And you're giving him a dude like Victor Wembanyama when most of his success has been with number one picks that are big men that have, unique skill sets. I mean, and think about when Timmy came into the league, you really didn't have another, like, obviously he wasn't a 3-point shooter, but still, you didn't really have like a shooting mid range big man like Timmy, like the skill set that
Yeah,
he had, like, kind of coming in. Obviously you had your Shaqs, your Hakeems, like there were people, finding, scoring avenues, or stars finding scoring avenues in that second levels. But it was more, kind of like sky hooks and stuff like that, where Timmy really, he had the jab step, in the mid range, and then pull up in your face. Or, obviously he has his fadeaways, and then of course his post bag. He has a lot of that too. I
yeah,
could go down the Timmy skill set, but it was just kind of like all three of these guys. Although Timmy and David weren't what Wembenyama is, they were both kind of specimens in their own right when they came into the league. That,
yes.
that's what they were, both consensus number one picks in their draft. Like, even when David had the 2 years out, even though Timmy had played all 4 years at Wake Forest, like, they were the consensus number one big men who brought unique skill sets. And that's just, I mean, like, that's why everybody says fits perfectly. That's why I joked on our live stream that it's rigged, because it's just like, it's so perfect.
Yeah, and you're right. They weren't like Wemby, but they were unicorns in their own era.
Exactly. That's
David
what I was trying to
Robinson,
say.
no one else was taking it coast to coast as a big man back then at 7'1", that athletic and that springy, that could hit mid range jumpers. I mean, Patrick Ewing could hit mid range jumpers, but he wasn't taking it coast to coast.
Right.
And Tim Duncan, face up, post up, whatever you want him to do. He couldn't hit the 3 pointer, obviously, but when he came into the league, he was also pretty quick and agile. He kind of became more of a low post threat as he aged,
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm beyond excited to see what he's able to do.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely dive into that more in another video. I know we made the
Yeah.
little clip. I just wanted to put that out because we're trying to put out as much content as we can for you guys. But we're definitely going to do like a real deep dive on like how we think the Spurs and the Spurs system, and obviously the system will turn into Wembanyama, but what the new Spurs Wembanyama system will look
Mm.
like. That's a good way
Mm.
to put it. But so obviously we think Pop's going to be around for a little bit longer. And I know you said, like, I agree. We should stop guessing. But for the sake of this video, Ethan, I don't know
Mhm.
why my light just went down there for a second. But anyways, do you think I think there's definitely a chance that it's even longer than this year. We probably shouldn't try to guess. I think
No,
my
no,
question is to you, do you think that what are your thoughts on Pop's coaching future? I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to tell you about years.
no. I wouldn't. I think he might stay all the way until Wemby is like done with his rookie contract.
Is
Honestly,
that 4 years?
3 to 4 years, I
Four,
would say,
5, maybe. Yeah.
at least until he gets extended. Only because
Interesting.
it takes some time to instill the great habits of the Spurs culture. And I think Pop will kind of want to set the table for the next guy to come in with a perennial playoff team, if that makes sense. Because right now we are still rebuilding. I don't think Wemby's going to get us into the playoffs immediately. I think play-in tournaments very likely. Um, but give it a couple years. I'm thinking 3, and the team will be ready to be handed off and taken
Hmm.
into the sunlight. Kind of like the way I know this is a little bit different scenario, but kind of the way that Mark Jackson took the Warriors until 2014, and they were like, "Okay, this team's ready." By Mark Jackson for some reason. In comes Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr takes them to 3 championships in a row. So that's what I'm thinking.
Gotcha. I definitely think that he could. I think it is not unreasonable whatsoever to think that he could be around for more than just this year. Now, I don't know if that would necessarily be the case if the Spurs didn't get the number one pick, but because they did, it definitely significantly increases his chances of sticking around longer. I was talking about how last year, the chances of him leaving decreased. This just, continues to do that, kind of like I already said. So I'm confident in it too, or maybe not confident, but I'm much more confident in it than I was before. Tuesday. So really not too much more to say about that, but I do have one question. I think there is a wild card here that could
Hmm.
potentially put a wrench in that. And that's if one of the high profile Spurs coaches that have just been fired or
Mm,
former Spurs coaches that have just been fired ends up joining the staff. I'm thinking like a Monty Williams or a Coach Bud. It seems like to me they're also in head coaching discussions, so that probably is unlikely. But if for some reason that doesn't happen and they wanted to come home, then I feel like that could maybe push Pop out a little bit earlier
mm,
just because of the fact that he would know that like he would trust those guys, especially if it's like Bud and even
yeah.
Monty. Like I just they've both been to finals. You know what I mean? Speaking of which, they coached each other against each other in the finals like
Hmm.
recently, and I know that it didn't end well for them in their situations, but I feel like the Phoenix situation, it's like, okay, everywhere KD's gone, it's kind of been that way. So I really give Monty like a pass. Now for
Hmm.
Coach Bud, I understand that you can talk about the history in Atlanta and the way that the series went, but I mean we're sitting here right now. Ethan, the Miami Heat are up 2-0 on the Boston Celtics in the
Hmm.
Eastern Conference Finals. So it's like as much as that was a tough loss, it's like obviously this Heat team is much better than their record.
Yeah.
So you know, I definitely think that I don't think Spurs fans would be opposed to that at all. And I definitely think that, with Coach Bud, even though he's one of the names that I've seen in different coaching searches already. If he were to come back, I think that would be somebody Pop would be like very trustful of. But with all this being said, Ethan, while I do think that that is just something to keep an eye on, and the reason I'm thinking about this is because Brett Brown, we brought him on.
Mm.
There may be a chance that we don't bring either of those guys on, and we stick with Matt Nielsen and Mitch Johnson, who have been a part of the staff for a long time. So, which honestly, that's probably the more likely scenario. But I think that's just something to keep an eye on because I don't think that the Spurs would turn away any of those guys if they were just like, I'm going through these discussions. I just went through this whole drama filled thing. I'm going to just go work with Pop and build this monster. Because that's basically what Brett did. You know what I mean? And while I think that Coach Bud and Coach Monty are more attractive than Brett in coaching searches, I also think that they're coming from similar scenarios.
They are. I would say Brett
And
was a
Doc.
little and
Forgetting
Doc.
about Doc.
I don't want Doc Rivers.
I don't want Doc either, but I'm just saying like that could be anyways.
Yeah, Brett was a little different because I think Brett's situation was like widely regarded as a really like a complete blow up in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
The way Ben
that's
Simmons
true.
ended and Joel Embiid, nobody
Very
seemed
good
to
point.
like Brett for some reason. I think it was really the players' fault personally, but I won't get into that. I think that sure, I would welcome Bud or Monty with open arms. I don't know if they'll be available by the time Pop retires. Is the only problem. I think that they are
I
very
was saying
sought
like
after.
this year if they came in as assistant
I
coaches.
doubt that would. I
Yeah.
think they're too sought after. I think if
Yeah.
Brett Brown really had as
I
many
agree.
opportunities as those two will have, he wouldn't be with the Spurs. I think the Spurs were kind of like he might have had a couple offers, but at the end of the day, championship contenders are offering Bud and Monty Williams coaching jobs. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Very
they
good
might
point.
even switch. They might even just switch teams. Like that could very well possibly happen, which is crazy. But
That would be crazy. I didn't think about
it
that.
could. I think in a couple years, first of all, Mitch Johnson would be a great pick. Matt Nielsen would be a great pick. Any of the number of the Spurs assistants would be a great pick to replace Pop. But Taylor Jenkins might be looking for a job by that point because the Memphis Grizzlies are kind of imploding. Not his fault at all, but that's just how things seem
Right.
to work. Is the coach is the first to go. Becky Hammond, the way things are going right now on the Aces, she might be looking for a job in a couple of years because of the alleged bullying of the pregnant player. And go read the article. I don't want to state my opinion on it, but
That's what
the,
it seems like. Right. Got fined for that.
every year there will be somebody who has a Spurs connection that is possibly available to
That's a
hire.
very good point too. Yeah.
So,
They're definitely they're gonna probably take a different job. I was
yeah.
kind of just saying on the off chance that if for some reason they were like, you know what, all of this is too drama filled for
I
me.
would love if
I'm
they
gonna go
came.
take a retreat in San Antonio. But
Sure.
and I don't think that, like I said, I don't think that that's likely. But I think that that is way more likely after this past Tuesday than it was. Like there's so many things to think about. But I liked how you were kind of leading into the next thought here, Ethan, and that was in 5 years or so, what potentially could happen. And I think rather than names, we are going to be in I mean, there's an asterisk here if things don't work out with Victor, but we're talking about this video as in everything works out, right? Or at least, he's an all-star franchise level player,
Yeah.
even if he doesn't end up being the greatest player of all time or the greatest prospect of all time or whatever that, everybody wants to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very attractive team. And another thing that we haven't even talked about with all of this is the new practice facility.
Yeah.
The new practice facility. Zach Lowe, Brian Windhorst, Brian Wright. He went on the NBA Combine recently and did an interview with Grant Hill and a lot of those guys. So lots of different intel and lots more Spurs media than we've seen in a while. But the point is everyone around the NBA, for as much as we give San Antonio, as much as San Antonio gets crap around the league as a city, this is going to be the best practice facility in the league. According to league insiders that are not Spurs fans, that's like Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst. That's not me saying that as a biased Spurs fan. I'm getting that from them. So that is also going to be super attractive to not only free agents, but new coaches as well. On top of the fact that although traffic is getting bad, and traffic's bad everywhere also, so that's the other thing. It's just you get everything that you can get. Austin Rivers was on the Ringer podcast saying this recently because they were talking about San Antonio and Wembanyama. It's like you can get everything you want in any other city. It's the 7th largest city in the country. It's just a little bit more spread out, and you got to know where the spots are. It's not like, where if you go to Houston and you go to James Harden's club, you're in the scene. You can find what I'm saying? Like in a lot of these cities, you can just jump in to downtown and it's like you're there. But the other thing he was saying, it's like, bro, you're close to Austin, you're close to Houston. I mean, anyways, I could go on and on. The point is San Antonio is becoming a more and more attractive place to live. And also, like, it's got the laid back personality, but you've still got everything that you would want. And
Yeah.
if it's not immediately with you, you can go find it in Austin, or other places, or you can go down the beach, whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm going a little bit more
No, no, no.
too deep into the Texas, things you can do. That's really less of the point here. The point is it's the seventh largest city in the country, and it's about to get the best practice facility in the league, and you're about to have Victor Wembanyama. And, you have all of the Spurs history with just the attractiveness of the organization and how they treat people and their professionalism and their culture and all that stuff. So with all of that being said, Ethan, as my light goes down once more, what are your thoughts on the attractiveness of the job in 5 years?
I think it's extremely attractive, especially to coaches. It's the place you want to be if you're a coach. We've had a guy tenured for since 1997, and even before that, as a general manager or a scout. So like we keep our guys around. We take care of our coaching staff and our players. And you already spoke to the practice facility that's coming and the incredible culture that we've built with 5 championships, having 20 seasons of 50 wins and making the playoffs and all this stuff. So it's a place you want to be. As far as a player, thinking that it's like too small a market or something, I want to ask a player, what is it? San Antonio is a great city. And you said it's the seventh largest city in the world or in the United States. Like we have everything that you would need. Like, I think it's
And
just
it's more
because,
spread out. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's
yeah,
almost more like you still have everything, but it's
I
just like
don't,
there's more space.
I don't understand the criticism. And I've lived in Dallas, which is
Obvious.
regarded as a place that players want to go for some
Right.
reason. And it's a wonderful city, but it's not really different from San Antonio. Like it's still a big city and it's got its suburbs and it's got its big buildings and its clubs and its bars and
Right.
everything that you would want. I think the reason
It
people
doesn't have
think
the Alamo Dome.
it doesn't have the Alamo Dome. It's got the AT&T stadium though, the Cowboys.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it's a
I'm
little bit bigger.
trolling.
Uh
Definitely a
yeah, it's
better
a little bit
stadium.
better. But I want to talk to a player
uh,
because I think the only reason people have this idea that San Antonio is a place you don't want to go is because we haven't had any crazy players. Like we haven't had anyone like in your face, like this is a lit city, it's lit, we're going out every night. Like all of our guys have been kind of either old or
and that kind of ties
bland.
into the culture too. Like we
Yeah,
just
like
don't really like. Also, our guys aren't really like. I mean, definitely we've had guys who go clubbing. I mean,
Steven
look at
Jackson,
Tony, baby,
DeJounte,
Tony,
Tony,
Tony. Like
Oh yeah,
Tony,
Aaron
Tony
Baines.
in the French club scene, man. Oh my goodness. But
Yeah, yeah.
anyways, but the point I'm trying to still like we don't really like Tony's really the only one who's kind of had like off the court stuff, but it's like still that wasn't in trouble. It was just like all the Eva Longoria stuff. You know what I mean? Like
And
who am I
well,
forgetting?
he slept with someone else's
Oh yeah, that's right.
significant other.
That's right. That's right. But like it wasn't anything that was like breaking the law in the
No,
club.
no, no,
That's
no. He broke the
sorry.
bro
I'm
code.
not saying I condone that whatsoever. I'm just saying that like the Spurs don't really have guys that get in a lot of legal trouble. Like
Correct.
so that's never usually like they're not usually in that scene anyway, is I guess what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Like and anymore, you don't have to be in LA or New York to have like a big media presence
I
or
love how
even
this turned into like the San Antonio podcast.
well, I'm
No,
just
but it is and Austin Rivers was talking about this. That's what led into this. Like
yeah,
he was on the Ringer recently, and they were talking about Wembanyama to the Spurs, and he was like everybody. He was basically saying what you just said, Ethan, and he's somebody who is a player. So
yeah.
like you know,
Endorsements. If you're a good enough player with the internet and the way the world is now, you could get endorsements and have like make more money without being in those national markets like LA and New York.
bro,
Like it's
go up
not
to Austin, dude,
yeah,
and
it's
you're an
growing.
NBA player. Like
Everyone that lives in LA is coming to live here.
that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
So
That's what I'm saying. Like anything that they want to do, like influencer wise or deal. I mean, they can find some stuff in San Antonio, and I'm sure they have all their Spurs stuff with Self and whatever companies they partner with as well. But if
yeah.
they need to go find like some business type stuff like that, literally just go to Austin. And
Mhm.
now we're gonna be playing games there. It seems like too. So you got that also, but the main takeaway here, Ethan, is that it's going to be very attractive. It's going to be like 1,000% more attractive than it would
Yeah.
have been because of Tuesday night. So that just gives us, I mean, we are going to have much more of a pick of the litter than it feels like the Spurs have been portrayed that they could ever have over at least the last like 6 years or so. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. That feels good. I'm glad I'm not crazy on
No, you're not.
that.
Not at all.
Oh my gosh, Ethan. Well, I wish I could speculate on some names, but that's just so far out in the future. It all kind of depends on when Pop goes, but we should now. Do you think that here's a good question to end it off, Ethan? Do you think that, like I said, if everything goes well, Pop decides to retire in 4 or 5 years, however long, do you think that we could lure a coach that we want away from a current job to come to San Antonio?
Um, it depends. It depends on their situation.
Okay. Do you think if we wanted a coach, say the Spurs at that point are like just getting into the playoffs, right?
Hmm.
Like maybe they just had a 6 or 7 seed, right? We'll just play it conservative, like built up the past couple years, maybe had some play-in battles over 2 seasons, but finally kind of got over the hump. We'll say 6 seed. We'll say that.
Okay.
Um, and then there's a team in the East that's the 3 seed or the 2 seed, something up there. One of the better teams, but we really want him. Like whether or if we have a connection with him. I think if we have a connection with him, we could definitely pull.
Is
So
he under
maybe
contract?
yes, that's what
Oh,
I'm
no.
asking. You don't think so?
The NBA
Even
won't
with
let that happen.
even with Wembanyama. Well, aren't there coaches? I thought coaches could do that.
You can get traded. Like
Okay.
Doc Rivers is traded from Boston to LA.
Okay.
And if you're fired, if they let you go, are you talking about like the 2K like interview other candidates? Or
No,
like
not even that. I just genuinely thought that there were coaches that could leave for other jobs. Maybe I just
not on their own fruition. They have to, I think, either be fired or just
could
relieved
they
of
re-
their
could
duties.
they resign and then take another job?
I don't
I feel
think so.
like there's an example that I can think of I feel like there's an example of this that I can't think of right now.
I've never heard of a coach quitting. I've
Then
heard
I
of
might just
GMs
be.
quitting.
I think I'm probably just thinking more of college football, probably.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
that's ever happened.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
no, that's
Sorry if
fine.
that doesn't apply to the NBA. No, because like that happens in other sports like all the time. Like you can just
Yeah,
hire other people's coach. Here, okay, no, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to Google this before we stop, Ethan, because I feel like I'm not crazy, but I totally could be. That could be the case. NBA coaches
I've only heard of one player ever quitting too,
hired
and it's Derrick
under
Rose.
contract. Let me see.
In the
So did
con-
they fired Carlisle, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. See, this is NBA rumors. Suns could be looking at Ty Lue as Monty Williams' replacement. And I'm
Is
pretty
he?
sure he's still under contract.
I have no idea. I don't.
Yes, yes. Mark Stein, the Suns, league sources say, are expected to explore the feasibility of trying to lure away Tyronn Lue from the Clippers. So you can get coaches from other contracts. That's kind of that was my question that I
I
was
guess it
asking.
would have to be like a buyout situation, though.
Yes, yeah. There's all that stuff that has to happen. But I was just basically saying, like, if we're a budding, that's why as the 60, I think we could. I think
You
we
think so?
could. If we're a budding like if everything's working out with Wembanyama in that situation, and
Uh huh.
it's like, say it's like, well, I'm not trying to portray the Celtics as a bad situation, but like if it's a team, and who knows what happens in the rest of the series, but just for the sake of conversation, if say it's a situation like the Celtics this year and they could totally come back and win, but just for the hypothetical, if they were to lose and then like a star player like Jaylen Brown, there's all the smoke around him potentially leaving, like I could see a coach in that sort of situation being like, I'm gonna go with Wembanyama, and this is kind of on the beginning of their peak where like maybe that could be like the end of their peak. But it also,
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, the Celtics could win 4 straight. But that's besides the point. The point is, a team in that sort of situation, I think we could potentially lure away.
I think. I mean, for the sake of the argument, yeah, yeah, they would be interested, and they would probably want to. But I'll say no in that I don't know if it's likely.
Okay.
Um, but I could see them wanting to come to the Spurs if there's a mutual agreement to part ways, a buyout situation, or a firing.
Yeah.
Um, but
That would probably be more likely with someone who'd have to have connections with the Spurs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you keeping me reasonable, Ethan.
Of course.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on SSPN. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe below. Hello to all the new people that have been subscribing recently. We appreciate you guys. Welcome to the fam.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero to stay updated with the show. We'll see you guys in the next one. We got super chats now, so in the next live stream, we'll have some new features that you guys can roll with. Not just that, there's some other cool stuff that we've got now too. So thank y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Go Spurs, go.